And welcome to today's Facebook Live. Today we are talking about Etsy ads. I was about to say Facebook ads. We are not talking about Facebook ads. We are talking about Etsy ads. And I'm really excited to dive into this topic of conversation because it has been a huge one around the Facebook group recently. Come say hey to me. Make sure that everybody can hear me. I will be recording this as a podcast as well. So welcome, and I'm excited to dive into Etsy ads. So first, I kind of want to go over like a little bit of background information about Etsy ads, sort of the history of it if you're new to Etsy or if you've just watched this sort of, I don't really want to say transformation because that makes it sound ads over the past year. Etsy ads used to be a profitable way of increasing your sales in your Etsy shop, particularly once you were a more established Etsy shop and you were having some sales. So it used to be that there was just Etsy ads. There was no offsite ads and Etsy ads. They were called promoted listings, and that was just that. And at the time, it was probably only like a year ago, maybe. It really wasn't that long ago. You could get like a 15 to 20 time return on your ad spend. So for every dollar that you put into ads, you could expect to get at least $15 to $20 back in sales that were happening in your shop, which was awesome and amazing and better than like pretty much any kind of advertising that was happening anywhere else or that you really could do anywhere else. So, you know, for my products that are selling in like the $40-ish range, I could put like $2, sometimes less, into ads and get a sale for $40. And that was great. And that worked great. Notice that that's all in the past tense. So Etsy went public with their company a few years ago. And then they split those into the offsite ads and the on-site ads, which are now called Etsy ads. And very few people at this point, actually, I don't know of anybody, I've not talked to anybody that is getting that kind of result that you used to be able to get. So it's been a huge topic in the group lately with a lot of differing opinions about whether or not you should run ads, whether or not this is a good investment, and also how to read those analytics to know whether or not it is working for your shop and to figure out the value of the ads that you are running and calculate whether or not they're working for you and your product. So I'm excited to dive into this and to talk about how to know what to do with those ads. I do want to just remind you really quick that the doors to Scale Your Sales are opening tomorrow morning. ScaleYourEtsySales.com is the link for that. If you are waiting for that program to open, we do have a section in there about Etsy ads, but mostly it's about optimizing your shop so that you're not having to advertising, which I think is becoming more and more important as these ad costs go up, which is what we're going to talk about. So if you are brand new to Etsy and you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can run Etsy ads on the website going to your dashboard. It is under the marketing tab of your dashboard. So it is dashboard marketing, and then it just says Etsy ads. You can play around with it there. One thing to note with Etsy ads that is different than the offsite ads is that with Etsy ads, you pay per click. So it will show you the number of impressions that you're getting from the ads that you're running and then the clicks that you're getting into your listings from there. That's not an inherently bad thing. There are most programs that do advertising, Facebook ads, Google ads, all of those kinds of things. They always do pay per click. So that's not like a weird thing. However, it is different than the offsite ads where you're only paying a percentage of your sale if you make a sale. So a lot of people will say like, I'm opting into offsite ads because I'm only going to pay that 15 or 12% depending on where you fall if I make a sale. So it's pretty much guaranteed money if you're paying that percentage. Etsy ads are different on site. You could potentially have hundreds of dollars worth of clicks onto your listings through Etsy ads and no sales that are getting there. So you still have to pay for those even if you're not making sales. So when you think about starting to run ads or whether you're debating running ads or not, I do want to remind you or tell you, if you haven't heard this before, that ads still work off of the Etsy search algorithm that works with your SEO. So if you have really bad SEO or really not well optimized SEO that nobody's really searching for and nobody's using those terms to look for your products, and nobody's really finding your listings in the search, ads are not necessarily going to help you to get found in the algorithm. The algorithm can only work off of what you put into that listing and what you put into the system and the way that you've described your products. So if you have search terms in your title and your tags and all of those pieces of SEO that nobody's looking for and people are not using those words to describe the thing that they're looking for, the algorithm can't like pull things out of thin air and assign it to your product if you haven't used those terms in your product. So it is still, the algorithm and the SEO is still a piece of the Etsy ads, even though you are paying for the ad. So if you don't have SEO that's optimized and listings that are getting found in the search, ads, putting money behind the ads is not really going to help that. So that has always been true of ads. I have always said that it is extremely important to optimize your SEO and have organic traffic to your listings coming in through the search before you dive into ads for that reason. I would actually say that that is true of all platforms, not just Etsy. You never want to run paid advertisements or put money behind your marketing for an unproven product. So if you can't sell the product on your own because nobody's looking for it, nobody's buying it, or they're finding it, but they're not buying it, so you're having traffic but not sales, putting money behind it in that paid advertisement piece is not a good strategy. It's not likely to get the kind of returns that you're going to need to sustain the cost of the paid advertisements. So the number one piece of that, the most important takeaway there, is that the first step to running Etsy ads is to make sure that you're already getting organic traffic and sales to the products that you're running ads to. We've talked about this in the past, but there is a difference between not having any traffic to something and having traffic but no sales. So if you don't have any traffic, usually that's an SEO problem. If you have traffic but you don't have any sales, that's a conversion rate problem. There's a ton of information on my podcast, there's videos on my Facebook page, and there's stuff on my blog about conversion rates, a step-by-step guide to conversion rate. So if you go to my website, laurenkeplinger.com, and search in the search bar conversion rate, you will find lots of stuff about that. But you want to make sure that you're not running those ads regardless of either of those situations. If you don't have any traffic, or if you have traffic but it's not converting, there's a disconnect somewhere, and putting money behind it is not likely to work. So once you are getting that traffic in your shop and you're getting the organic sales, where do those ads come in? I would very first start off by running ads to your best-selling products. It sounds counterintuitive because you think that you have these things that are already selling, so you should put money behind the things that are not selling. But for all the reasons that I just talked about with the traffic and the conversion rate and all of that, running to the items that have a stronger sales history and have a proven ability to convert people into buying is key. So I personally would begin with just a handful of bestsellers. So let's say your top 2 or 3 best-selling items in your shop that people are purchasing most often and that you're having the best luck with or the best results with. One kind of point that I want to make with ads, with the way that they do the ads and they run the ads, that's a little bit frustrating, it's not optimal, is that you can't decide how much money you want allocated to spend on each individual item. You can only tell the system how much you want to spend overall, and then you can tell them how many products you want to run ads to. So if you jump in headfirst with Etsy ads and you start promoting like 30 items at a time and you have a budget of $30 a day, which I would definitely not recommend that. But let's say you did that. So you say, okay, I have 30 items and I have $30 a day. So it's going to spend $1 a day on ads and then on each item, and then I'll see which ones are working best. But unfortunately, that's not really the way that it works. So you don't get to test each one. You will find when you run ads that there are times that they will spend like 50 cents on one listing and then they won't promote it anymore. And that's like the end of it. It just dies. And then there's times where almost all of the ad money goes to one product and you don't have control over that. So you don't have control over the distribution of the money within the listings that you promote. So that is the reason why I would recommend that you only promote a handful of items, because you have a little bit better control in that way and a little bit better ability to look at what's working and what's not working on a smaller scale. So I would recommend that you just start with a few, and that way you can really see what kind of return you're getting from the ads. You can stop the ones that are not working quickly because you'll know that they're not working because they're going to be racking up the ad spend without any sales. And you can test a little bit more proactively. Running Etsy ads, running ads anywhere really, but Etsy ads is an active process. It is something that you have to be involved in and you have to be constantly testing and watching. It used to be that you could kind of set it and forget it. Like I would start ads on things, they'd be getting those crazy returns, 20 times return on my investment or whatever, and I would just leave them for months and months and months and never look at them, and they were great. That's not the case anymore. Unfortunately, those days are gone. So you have to be actively watching, looking at what you're doing, analyzing, troubleshooting, and looking at new things to promote, looking at the sales that are happening in your shop. Maybe a lot of people, this happens in my shop, and I hear a lot of people say that it's happened in their shop, where you have one item that's like a bestseller for a long time. It sells for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's great. And then all of a sudden this other item comes up, and maybe it's been in your shop for a while. It's not necessarily a new item, but all of a sudden it sells really, really well. And then all of a sudden the sales drop off on that. And there's sort of this natural ebb and flow with sales, and it's never going to be even. Like you're never going to have an even distribution of sales across all your products. So running ads to those ones that are working in your shop right now is really important. And it's important that you stay on top of that with your ads, that you don't just set it to spend whatever it's going to spend and then it kind of just spirals out of control and you're not watching it. So just because you're getting a good return on something right now doesn't next month you're not going to, and vice versa. You can test the ones that maybe you ran ads on them in the past and they didn't work that well, but they might next month. You just never know. So it's a constant testing process. So when we're looking at the analytics and we're looking at that dashboard that tells us what our results are, what are we looking at? How do we want to look at that? Etsy recently added a column into those analytics that talks about your ROAS. It says ROAS, ROAS. That's stands for, like I said before, return on your ad spend. So if you're not familiar with that term, that's a marketing term with ads. They use it everywhere, like Facebook uses it and stuff. And I don't know why Etsy added this into the analytics column. However, I think that it is making the ads seem to be in a slightly more flattering light than what I would say is the actual reality of the way that they're happening with a product-based business. So the ROAS, the ROAS, is telling you how much money you're making from the ads that you're running for every dollar that you're putting into it. So if your ROAS is $6.50 for every dollar that you spend on ads, you're making $6.50. So that sounds great. In a lot of places with a lot of marketing, anything over a 1 is great. For every dollar I put in, I make $1.50. Fantastic. However, this is the problem that I find with ROAS on the Etsy platform. Most of us are selling physical products. So digital products are going to be totally different in this way. If you have a digital product, if you're selling SVG files, if you're selling art downloads, if you're selling something that you've made one time and your costs are embedded in that one time of making it, but you don't have additional costs in making it more times, then your ROAS, looking at and analyzing your ROAS, is going to be different. So if I have a digital product that, let's say it sells for, $3, it's an SVG file, and I'm getting a 1.6 or a $1.60 is how they list it on Etsy, a $1.60 ROAS on that listing. That means for every dollar I put into marketing that listing, I'm making $1.60. Since it's passive income with digital downloads, that's fine. It's not costing you anything more. However, that conversation changes entirely if you have physical products. And in particular, if you have physical products that you are making. So even something like vintage or antiques would be slightly different, although not 100% different. But physical products that you are making, as well as the vintage and antique reselling kind of stuff, you have product costs. You have physical costs that go into making products that you are making. And in addition to that, you have your time, employees' time, somebody has time spent somewhere making that product. So if I'm putting $1 into my ads and I'm only making $1.60, I have to make sure that that makes sense along with all of the other costs that I have going into that product. So the way that I look at ads and the way that I analyze this to make sure that it is making sense is different than just looking at the ROAS. If you have a digital product, I would say look at just the ROAS. That's fine. As long as it's over 1, people pretty much are cool with that. Obviously the higher the better across the board. But for most of us, we have physical product costs. So I pulled up my numbers. So I'm looking down my screen really quick, but I pulled up my numbers for one of my best selling products. So I will just caveat this by saying the only reason I am still running these ads is so that I can be experimenting with them to be able to talk through this with people in my Scale Your Sales program. Otherwise, if I was just running this shop as just I'm just running Funky Monkey and this is my product-based business and I'm not doing the coaching side, I would have turned these off a long time ago because they are not working well for me. So this is my best-selling product. I have spent, what Etsy told me is that I have spent $78.33 for $170 in sales. This was like in the last 7 days or something. I can't remember what the timeline was. So what Etsy tells me in that column is I'm getting a $2.30 ROAS. To me, what they're trying to say there is that's great. And it does word it in a way that I feel is a little bit deceptive. I mean, they are calculating the ROAS correctly, but I feel like it's a little bit deceptive. Because it says for every dollar you put into advertising, you're making $2.30. Wow, okay, that's great, magic money. But the thing is, that $78.33 has only been for 5 sales. So it was a total of 5 products that sold to make that $170. So when I end up looking at that, what it's telling me is the $78.33 that I spent divided by the 5 sales that it brought in, it's costing me $15.66 per sale to run those ads. So all of a sudden that conversation changes a lot when I look at the fact that it's costing me, this was a quilt that was selling. So that quilt is priced at $43-ish, and it's costing me $15.66 for each one that I'm selling. Now, again, if this was a digital product that was $43 and it was only costing me $15.66 for advertising, that would be a good return. Okay, whatever, I'm not going to be able to do that mental math on the spot, but $43 minus $15.66, I've made, whatever that is, $28 in profit, and life is grand. But the problem is I have other costs associated with that. In that $43 that I'm selling that quilt for, I have the actual quilt. The stabilizer that I'm using, the thread, the machine maintenance. I have an employee that does my monogramming for me, so I'm paying her. I have Etsy fees for that. I have shipping that's built into that. So when you take the $43 that I'm making for that quilt, you subtract that $15 that I'm paying for each sale that I'm running those ads to, I'm only left with $28 in profit, but that's not really profit. I then have to subtract out all of the costs that are associated with making that product. And all of a sudden, that advertising cost is really, really high. So even though Etsy is telling me that my ROAS is positive at $2.30 for every dollar I'm putting in, at the end of the day, that is not a good situation for me to have almost $16 in advertising costs per item that I'm selling, because my material costs that are going into that product are too high to sustain that. So I cannot tell you in my own business or I can't tell you in your business what's going to work for you. This is going to be extremely dependent on your profit margins for your product. So it is no Etsy ads work across the board or Etsy ads don't work across the board. I can't make that blanket statement. It is really, really dependent on your profit margins. I will say that I have really high profit margins on the items that I'm making, and it is still not profitable for me to do this at this point. So this is one of those reasons. I always say this with people. I always think this with Etsy shops. You need to be extremely aware of your numbers. Just because somebody else tells you that they're getting $5 ROAS on the ads that they're running, first of all, it doesn't really mean that it's working for them either. A lot of times what it means is that they don't really understand how to do this calculation. But it also for sure doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. It does not mean that it's profitable. So it's something that you have to be really, really aware of and really knowledgeable about for your own business and your own profit margins. And even if you have a shop that has differing products, like I don't have very many, I only have 2 main products in my shop, but if you have something that maybe you have a wider breadth of options that you're offering in your shop, maybe running ads works for some items and it doesn't work for others. You have to do those calculations for each one and do that testing and really see where that lands for you as a business owner. Okay, questions now. And that is my spiel about ads. If you have questions, if you're here live, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to start just at the top. Chelsea says, how often to scale your sales? I don't have time to take it right now. So scale your sales, I'm kind of like revamping the way that I'm doing it. So it will be open for enrollment even after Monday. The price is going up on it. So this will be the last chance to get it at this price for right now. But the real benefit to enrolling in one of the bigger enrollment times is that I'm going to be doing a lot more fun stuff. So I haven't really fleshed out. I got to figure out these details really fast before. But I'm planning on like co-working days, Facebook Live, Q&As, or strategy calls and stuff in the upcoming 4 or 5 weeks after people get enrolled right now so that we can like really hammer in everything before the summertime. So if you want to enroll at a later time, it will still be open. I don't like to have that kind of marketing where it's like, I was reading this thing this morning that it was an email and the subject line was, it's now or never. And I'm like, it's really now or never. Like you can do it at a later date. But the really hands-on high stuff is going to be over the next month or so. So if you decided to enroll after that, then it would be a little bit less hands-on. Like I normally just do 1 time a month Q&A and stuff. So not that that's bad. People work differently and people work at their own pace. And I've done once a month Q&A for a long time and that's worked great for everybody. So I just want to be able to have this more high touch experience over the next few weeks. Julie says, how do we gauge what good traffic is if we are new? This is a really hard question because it's going to look different for everybody. I think that that's going to be really dependent on the number of sales that you're getting from that traffic and whether or not you're happy with that number of sales. So typically the conversion rate for newer shops is 1 to 2%. So for every 100 visits that you get to your shop, you're going to get 1 to 2 sales. For people with a slightly higher conversion rate or more established shop, usually that hovers closer to like 4 or 5%. So, if you're happy with 1 to 2 sales a day, then I would say aim for 100 visits. If you want more sales than that, then you'll probably have to have more traffic than that. So that's kind of, it's going to look different for everybody. But that has pretty much stayed true. Like that was true even when I started. It was about that 1 to 2% conversion rate. How long should you expect to wait before your items start getting views? Is it like a new website that takes a while to come up in the Google search? No, I think that if everything is optimized really well in your shop, you should be getting traffic. There's nothing that says like the system has to crawl your site and find you in the search and that takes a month or so. That's kind of it's not a misconception because it's something that's talked about a lot, but it's kind of like a little slightly off information. the search can find you right away, but the fact is with like SEO and stuff, it takes a while to figure out whether or not that's working, because it takes a little while to just get the volume of people coming into your shop to know whether you're having a traffic problem or a conversion problem or at all. And so a lot of, or a piece of SEO that Etsy talks about but doesn't really explicitly describe or all of the details is your quality score. And the quality score is what they say is it made up of how people interact with your shop. So are they coming in and looking through all the pictures? Are they coming in and looking at multiple listings? Are they purchasing? Are they comboing you? All of those pieces go into it. If you hit the ground running and you immediately have traffic and sales and you have this good feedback mechanism for the Etsy search, then there's not like it's going to take 4 weeks to get found. I just had somebody in my Your Sales group the other day say that she opened her shop in March and she had $1,000 in sales already and her shop was brand new. So there's not like this magical time frame. I would say for most people, it does take a little while to ramp up. A lot of that is because a lot of people open and then they like fumble around for a little while before they kind of start to figure things out, or before they learn the correct way of doing it. So there's this ramp up time while they're fumbling around a little bit. Okay, Linda asked how many views per day would you consider as good traffic? So I kind of already answered that. But how many views is desirable for one sale? It does usually hover around that 1 to 2% conversion rate for newer shops. Holly says, most of my items are seasonal. Worth it to do ads for them? So I would say it's probably something that you have to start earlier than you think. The seasonality of things starts really early. If you think about like Target, you're seeing bathing suits in Target in like February. So the seasonality of buying things is earlier in retail than it is like for everybody else. I would say if you have things that sell well on a year-to-year basis, so if you've been in business for more than 1 year and so you have that sales history. For example, I have a stuffed bunny that's in my shop that I sell all year long, but at Easter time, I ran an ad for like the Easter bunny, stuffed bunny. And I started that in like February for Easter. So if you have things that have a strong sales history for that season and for that holiday or whatever, then I don't think it's a bad idea to run ads. Again, the biggest takeaway that I want you to take away right now from this whole Facebook Live is that you have to be on top of watching your numbers. So I don't want you to set an ad and then not look at it for 2 weeks and to have ended up spending, $200 on ads and not have any sales. To run them for 30 days before you get a good grasp of what's happening, I think that's a little risky. Mine are set right now at $5 a day, but I would say if you're running things, like I don't really like to run them for more than a week before I begin to test and figure out, if they've been a whole week and not a single thing has sold of a listing that's being promoted, then I usually turn that one off because I'm just not willing. It depends on how much of that money is being allocated to the one that's not working. So if they're not getting a whole lot of views and it's not costing very much, I'm there. But if it's just pouring money into this listing that's not selling, I'm going to turn it off pretty fast. What about POD products? So this is a great question. I actually thought about this while I was talking about it, but then I have like a spiel that I wanted to get through and I forgot to say it. POD is going to be similar. It's going to be kind of like in between. So I would say it's going to be in between the digital products and the handmade products because it's not completely passive like digital products, but you don't have the time element like handmade products. It falls in the middle. However, I will say with POD products that I have seen, a lot of times the actual physical cost of the product is pretty high. So I think that it's really not any different wise than calculating the handmade products. You just don't have to do that calculation for what you're paying yourself per, time that you're spending making it or what you're paying your employee. So let's say you pay, $20 for a shirt that's printed by a POD company and then there's shipping and all of that, you still want to make sure that the price that you're paying per order that you're getting, or per ad, the ad that you're running and the orders that you're getting, that it makes sense profit margin wise for POD products. Because what I have found with people that I've worked with POD and people that I talk to is that a lot of times the profit margins are pretty slim on those. So again, you just want to make sure that it's working for those individual products. Okay, let's say, for example, you put $1 a day into ads and you sell 10 items at $120 each. Do you continue? Do you put more money in? Example only. So if I am selling, so you're putting $1 into ads and you sell 10 items and they cost $120 each, I would say that's amazing, and I would for sure continue to run that. Because so basically you're making $1,200 in those sales, if I am understanding correctly. So I'm not 100% understanding the conversation here, because I don't know what span, like if you're putting $1 a day into ads and you sell $120 items, is that like 10 items over the course of a month, or how much are you putting into it? Regardless, I think that calculation would be good. I would do it the same way that I said, like whatever your total ad cost is divided by the number of items that you've sold. So if you put $100 into it and you sell 10 items, it's costing you $10 per item to sell it. If those items are $120 each and it's costing you $10, then that is a different conversation than if it's costing you $10 and those items only cost $15. So that's really going to be dependent. Again, I can't tell you whether or not this works for your business and your products. You have to do that calculation yourself. So the amount, and it's going to change over time. Like there could be times that it cost me $15.66 per sale to make this sale. And then there could be other times that it cost me $6. And then all of a sudden that's a different conversation. If it's costing me $6, it might be profitable. At almost $16, it might not be profitable. So the total number that you're spending on ads divided by the number of actual products that you've sold is your price per product. Okay, I'm new to the POD. Does it raise ranking to have a friend and family member make a purchase? It's always going to help your ranking to have sales. So whether those are friends and family or strangers, it's always going to help your quality score and your sales history to have those sales of that item. That's a big reason why I encourage people, if you're doing in-person, to link it through your Etsy so you have that sales history on those items. I like to build a business based on friends and family buying from me, because I have found, no offense if any of my friends and family are watching this, sometimes my friends and family are my most high maintenance customers. But also it's just not a sustainable business model to be like hustling your friends and family for sales all the time. So, but if you're just getting started, certainly my first sales were to my friends and family. That's how a lot of people start off. So I would run it through Etsy, if that's your question, really. I would run it through Etsy versus not. So the history is there. Is there somewhere I can learn to better understand my detailed stats on my dashboard? I'm having trouble understanding what's working. Etsy brought visits versus my shop brought visits. So analytics is something that I talk about a lot in Scale Your Sales. I also do have a podcast that is called like the 3 analytics you need to be paying attention to or something. If you search for analytics, on my website, laurenkeplinger.com, it should come up as a blog post, like the 3 most important analytics or something. I can't remember, what exactly it's called. But yeah, there's a lot of numbers. I think it's really, really important to know those numbers. A lot of times people feel intimidated by the analytics because it's like a lot of data, and being able to only look at the data, but then figure out from that what's working and what's not working, and then how to fix it if it's not working, is really, really important. You don't want to just put stuff up and feel like you're winging it to say, I don't know, I'm getting some sales, but I'm not, this is the time when a lot of people, I'll see in Facebook groups and stuff, I spent $500 in listing fees or $500 in Etsy ads or whatever, and it's not making me any money, and Etsy's too expensive is a lot of times what people say, but it's because they're not watching those numbers, and that's just really important. Susan says, do you think the proper amount to see if something can gain traction is $5? I think that that's highly dependent on your price point of your items and also your comfort level with sinking some money into it. So how are you going to feel if you say run them for 30 days at $5 a day and you spend $150 and you don't make that money back? Is that going to be really stressful to you, or is it kind of a bummer but not that big of a deal? Is it going to be like a big hit to you on a monthly level? So a lot of that is your comfort level and what you're willing to experiment with. If your sales history is pretty strong, you feel pretty good about your Etsy business, you have the profit margins and you have the sales and the revenue to sustain it, I would play around with them some. I think $5 a day is fine to start. I feel comfortable at $5 a day because I feel like at $150 a month, even if I don't make that money back, I'm okay in my Etsy shop. When I start having that at $10 a day or $20 a day or $50 a day, all of a sudden, like, I'm really willing to lose $1,000 a month on ads, or to basically be working for free because I'm not making any profit on my items because that breakdown is so high. Mary says, I'm so confused by views versus visits, and I've read so many different conflicting explanations. So visits are the number of people that come into your shop and look at your stuff. Views are the number of listings looked at. So if one person comes into your shop, that's one visit. If a person looks at 10 different listings that you have listed in your shop, then that's 10 views. If two people come into your shop and they only look at one thing, then that will be 2 views and 2 visits. If they look at 2 things each, then that would be 2 visits and 4 views. So the views are the number of items that they're looking at. The visits are the number of people. Views are typically going to be higher than visits. Usually a lot of people see about a 2-to-1 ratio. So each person that's coming into their shop looks at 2-ish items each. All right, I think that's all the questions. Let me make sure. I don't see any other ones there. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that this helps to give you the tools to look at those Etsy ads and really analyze whether or not they are working for you, or if you have not gone into those yet, to know what you're looking for once you decide to take that step and to make sure that they are profitable for you. I do just want to remind you that Scale Your Sales is opening. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to welcome a new group in to get everything squared away and optimized before the summertime. I know a lot of people like to step back a little bit for the summer, so we have plenty of time to get that done before the kids get out of school and chaos happens. So that is opening Friday through Monday, the 7th through the 10th. There will be an email going out tomorrow morning. If you are on the email list, if you're not on the email list, go to scaleyouretsySales.com and get on the waiting list for that, and you will be the first to know. So I hope that I will see you inside that program. It is a really great step-by-step, breaks it down. I'm all about step-by-step learning, analyzing what's working, making sure that these numbers are working for you, and that you are knowledgeable about what you're looking for and how to analyze that for your specific products in your shop. So I will see you later. Thanks for coming.